Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here. We have another question. Quickly ask, what is the threat of quantum computing to Bitcoin? Is it a genuine threat? Should we actually be worried? And the answer to that is, yeah, it is an actual issue. But I'll give an analogy. It's like saying, is a nuclear war a threat to Bitcoin? And the answer to that is yes. But if that ever happens, I think Bitcoin is the last tier problems. I mean, you have issues of food, you have issues of if you live in, everything else will be affected. Likewise, with quantum computers, it is an issue for Bitcoin, but it's also an issue for everything which uses cryptography, because Bitcoin uses what's called elliptic curve cryptography, which is a form of cryptography or securing information that is used across the board, not just Bitcoin. It's used for nuclear, it's used for missile codes, it's used for email securing your emails, it's used for bank accounts, for ATM. It's used across the board. It's not just used for Bitcoin. So the analogy of the nuclear war is that, yeah, Bitcoin will be damaged as well as everything else. So forget your bank account, forget withdrawing money from bank account, that's all finished. Forget TV or your computers, that's all broken. So many things are broken, but that use cryptography that Bitcoin might actually be the last thing on your mind. But the question is, what does it actually mean and what is the actual threat? So with Bitcoin, we have your private key, which we use to generate your public key. And you use your public key to receive your funds, to receive your money. When you want to spend your money, you sign your transaction. So you make a transaction and you sign it with your private key. Only the owner of the private key can sign that. And with the early addresses that was used at the beginning of Bitcoin, you used to send money directly to your public key. So the quantum computers aren't actually a threat to your actual Bitcoin, not directly, but they are definitely a threat to those who use the old addresses. But let's have a quick look at what does it mean to be of cryptography. What does it mean? Let's have a look. So what we have here is an elliptic curve. So we have here y squared plus x cubed equals x cubed plus ax plus b. This is elliptic curves. And you can see if you adjust the variables, you adjust the b, if you adjust the a, you get different shapes of the elliptic curve. But essentially, this is how elliptic curve cryptography, or what it comes from. Why or how? Okay, let's have a look. If I go for the exact elliptic curve for Bitcoin, it is where a is equals to 0. There we go. And, oh, come on. And where b is equals to 7. Okay, so that's the elliptic curve of, oh, come on, of Bitcoin. Okay, that looks like. So that's not all. We also see here a line going from one bit to the other. So we see a line here intersecting with this thing here. And essentially, your private keys will be this intersect. You see here this orange dot and this blue dot. That's your private key. Now, where we also have a third dot. You see here, this line goes across here and then intersects with this third line, this third dot here. And this third dot here also is inversed at the bottom. So we have the inverse of that. That dot here, the blue dot at the bottom here, that's your public key. So if I gave you this number down here, how would you actually know that this number came from this? So we have here x is equals to minus 1.7 and x2 is minus 0.4. That's how we got this dot over here. Does it tell you what that number is? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Anyway, so how would I know it? You wouldn't know it. That's the whole point. And it's more to it than this, because obviously you have to do a finite field mathematics as well, which is another whole thing. But the point here is, giving you this number, there's no way of knowing or going backwards to get the original number. That's basically how Bitcoin cryptography works. So I can send you Bitcoin to that number, and when you sign that with the original private key, as proof that you actually have the private key. Fair enough. So only if you sent Bitcoin to the actual public key, your funds are at risk. We don't use those kind of addresses anymore. That was what Satoshi used to use, but we actually use a different address, whereby we actually hash that as well. So there's a whole new thing there. But the point here is going backwards is infinitely more difficult than going forwards. It would take probably the age of the universe to calculate what the actual number would be. But with quantum computers, you could do that. So that's the threat. But like I said, that's only a threat, number one, if you use those old addresses. And number two, it's a threat for everything, all things that use public cryptography. There are algorithms or types of cryptography which is quantum resistant, but the signatures and the transactions are larger than this one. So that's the challenge we have now. To find a signature that is as the same size or smaller than what we currently have, which is why it is people are looking how to update the algorithm we use. It's not the end of the world. All it means is that we have to change this form of cryptography to a one that is resistant to quantum computing. So it's not actually a threat unless we have a quantum computer that can do millions of qubits, which we don't have. But if we did have that tomorrow, it would be an issue. But I suspect that we'll actually have a better algorithm for cryptography that is quantum resistant way before we get to that stage where we have a problem. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. Assalamu alaikum.